Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. So I was reading this book because I was recommended the TV show on Netflix by a lot of people. My aunt told me to watch it, my therapist told me to watch it, and my friend Allison, who you've seen many times on this channel, she also told me to watch it. But when I found out it was based on the book, I didn't want to make the same mistake I did with Game of Thrones, so I read the book before I watched the TV show. I'm only like 2 episodes into the TV show, so basically this video is just going to be talking about the book. I probably won't make a video on the TV show unless it's like wildly different from the book, because I feel like it'll be a bit redundant. So, what do I think about the book? I think it's a great book. Really interesting book. I never thought they'd be able to make chess interesting. How could chess be interesting? But here we go. It's a great book. So we start out with Beth as like a really small child whose mother died in a car crash, and her father died years earlier. So he has to move into an orphanage, and it's a very depressing opening. It's like sentence one of the book is like Beth's mom is dead, so off to a depressing start. So the orphanage is kind of a depressing place, and they give the children, these tranquilizer pills, and Beth soon develops an addiction to it, and it leads to like several years of substance abuse. And Beth also meets this young girl named Jolene, who kind of shows all the ropes of the orphanage. She's a very important character in Beth's life. I don't know, she's kind of important to her development and early maturity because Beth's been through a lot. Jolene was kind of good to be there to help her mature, though I think she molested her. I can't tell. Like, it was very vague wording. Somebody correct me in the comments, but I think she molested her. I do not know. It's just a weird scene where she was. Yeah, I don't know. That was uncomfortable. Anyway, Jolene tells her how to spread the pills apart to feel them better, so it makes her addiction rules. She starts to, like, skip a couple days and take a bunch of them at night so she could feel something. It's really messed up considering she's like 8. And meanwhile, Beth meets this janitor in the basement named Mr. Seibel playing chess. And she begs her to teach her how to play, and he reluctantly teaches her after a while. And it turns out she's a prodigy at chess, and she's able to beat Mr. Seibel only after a few days of playing. And something I like about this is I've known quite a few prodigies in different areas, and a lot of them are dicks, a lot of stuck-up dicks. But I like how they didn't portray Beth in this way. They portrayed her as kind of humble, and kind of quiet. Um, I like the way Beth speaks in this. She's very like short and to the point, kind of socially awkward, but I don't know, a little humble. Anyway, uh, Cybele recommends that she joins this chess club for the high school, and she's able to beat all the players, like every single one of them. Like she's playing like 8 of them at one time. She beats all of them, even though they are older than her and more experienced than her. She's able to do it. However, her pill addiction gets rules, and the government bans the tranquilizers from the orphanage because it's kind of messed up to give kids tranquilizers. But she's starting to withdraw, so she sneaks into this pill room, takes like 20 pills, like eats them like the popcorn, and she immediately overdoses and has to go to the hospital. And Mrs. Deodorff punishes her because I guess Beth is ashamed to the whole hospital and stuff, and she punishes her by banning her from playing chess. Which to me seems like a very cruel punishment because chess was the only thing keeping her mentally stable, and to take that away just seems really cruel and unusual, I guess. But so it doesn't really last for long because we get a time skip, and she's adopted by Mrs. Wheatley a couple years later, who's like a really nice woman, but she's an alcoholic, and she always wanted a kid. But her husband is distant and really doesn't give a fuck about either of them, and he's probably cheating on his wife. And Beth realizes that Mrs. Wheatley takes the same tranquilizer pills that she used to take at the orphanage, so she steals them constantly and takes so much of the pills, so they go through them pretty fast. And Beth is trying to tell Mrs. Wheatley about how much she loves chess, but Mrs. Wheatley is a bit apathetic, and she doesn't buy a chessboard or chess magazine because she's like, oh, you don't need to learn about chess, who cares? But Beth just kind of steals the magazine anyway. And through the magazine, she finds out there's a local chess tournament. So she borrows $10 from Mr. Seibel to enter, and she wins money. But when Mrs. Wheatley finds out that Beth could win money by playing chess, she completely goes a 180, and like all of a sudden she's super into chess and encourages Beth to play now, which is kind of a bit selfish, but it's hilarious at the same time. I don't know. So Beth rises through the ranks and goes from tournament to tournament. And while she does this, kind of across the whole country, her bond with Mrs. Wheatley strengthens, and she starts to consider her as a real mother. And it's very sweet, because Beth really hasn't had a real mother figure in her life for a long time. So we jump ahead a few years, and she graduates high school and starts taking Russian classes at this community college. And she goes to a party where she smokes weed and loses her virginity, and then plummets into a weekend of alcohol and drugs. So she's really not doing this great. Her substance abuse problem is still persisting, and meanwhile, Mrs. Wheatley's alcoholism gradually gets worse and worse as well, which is kind of a parallel between the two. So later, they travel to Mexico City for an international tournament, and Mrs. Wheatley spends most of their time together with her pen pal Manuel, who's, I guess, known her since he was a teenager, but they never physically met. But he kind of leaves to go on this business trip, and we never really hear or see from him again. So I don't know, that was kind of weird. And meanwhile, Beth's competing against a 12-year-old Soviet Union prodigy who seems to be just as good as her, if not better. So she finally found like another prodigy. But she beats him, but it was like a really close game. It was a long 2-day match. And she seems to forget he's still a child, because he's so intellectual, but she's reminded of it when he gets enthusiastic about going to this drive-in movie theater and how he always wanted to go to one. Now, I mean, I gotta give it to this kid. Drive-in movie theaters are pretty cool, so I respect that. So she ends up losing the tournament, and she was close, but she goes back to the hotel room and finds out that Mrs. Wheatley is dead. She died from hepatitis, which is probably because of her drinking. And Mr. Wheatley just doesn't give a fuck. Like, he just doesn't care. But he says that Beth could keep the house. So Beth becomes depressed by Mrs. Wheatley's death and keeps taking the tranquilizers. And she moves back into her old house, and she has her friend Beltic move in with her, who trains in chess with her, as well as they sleep together a couple times. But he leaves when he realizes that she loves chess more than she loves him, and I don't know, they don't really have an emotional connection. So she later reunites with her old friend Benny Watts and plays him in like several rounds of speed chess, and she loses to him like every time. But she beats him at a tournament the next day, which shows that Benny's a good chess player, but his main specialty is speed chess. But if there wasn't a speed chess, then she'd definitely beat him. And she decides to move to New York into Benny's apartment to have him train her for the Paris tournament because he's about to leave the country for the first time and compete in Paris, which is like a really big international tournament. And they eventually sleep together and they start dating, but he's a bit socially distant. Not that type of socially distant, you know what I mean. And he talks about chess like immediately after they have sex, which kind of makes her upset. So she goes to Paris and has a long night of drinking before the night of the tournament. And she's all like hungover and stressed out, but she manages to go downstairs in time. But she loses to Borgoff because she's really hungover. And she's like devastated and embarrassed by this, and she leaves Benny and goes back to Kentucky, but Mr. Wheatley wants the house back. So she has to buy that out his equity, so she doesn't have that much money now, and I don't know, Mr. Wheatley's not a good guy, but at least we never see him again in this book. So then she plunges into like a drug and alcohol binge the last days, and she kind of tears her apart, and she realizes that she needs help, so she finds her old friend Jolene to help her. And Jolene is now like a college student going for a physical education degree, but she really wants to become a lawyer instead. And Jolene kind of emphasizes with her and tells her that the right thing to do is to start exercising more. So he gets her on a workout plan and slowly gets her sober. So Jolene came right in the nick of time. It was nice. So Beth gets a call from Mrs. Deodorf, who tells her that Mr. Seibel has died. And at first, Beth isn't that upset, you know? But after going to his funeral and going back to the orphanage basement, she sees like a bunch of newspapers and pictures about her that Mr. Seibel taped to the wall, and she realizes that he was really proud of her. He was really proud of what she's done and all her achievements, and his death gives her the motivation to go to the Russian tournament. And the Christian Crusade offers to pay for it, but she doesn't really care about the Christian values, although anti-communist values, I guess. So instead, she lends money from Jolene. And Benny doesn't really want to come with her because they had a falling out. So instead, she goes with a State Department member who's kind of, I don't know, he's just kind of there. And she decides to remain completely sober because she realizes that being sober lets her reach her full potential. And she realizes that this is more important to her than anything she's ever done. But she's still a little stressed out the night before. But she gets a phone call from Benny, who gives her advice on strategies to use against Borgov. So they kind of make up and they're friends again. And right before the tournament, she meets several elderly fans in the park by her hotel, and they wish her good luck. And it's just a very sweet moment because she realizes, like, they could still love chess later in life, you know? She's never going to lose that. And it gives her confidence. And she has a really intense match against Borgov, but after a while he resigns and she wins, and she tells him how big of a fan she is of him, and they hug because they respect each other. It's just a really nice chapter, like, really good, like, mutual respect, you know? So later, she's, like, doing these interviews, and she doesn't really like doing interviews because she's really introverted, but she does tell them about Mrs. Theodolf's cruelty and how she banned her from playing chess just to be mean. And we never really find out the consequences of this, but I assume this would tarnish the orphanage's reputation, which is Beth's goal, you know? So she doesn't really like the after party that comes after, so she leaves and just goes to the park, and she sees an old man playing chess, but he doesn't recognize her from the chess tournament. He just some old man who likes chess, and she sits down and asks him if he wants to play, and that's the end of the book. So yeah, I don't know. I thought this was a really good book. I'm usually not into anything related to chess, but it just had a good plot and a good central character that I enjoyed it. Kind of like Ford versus Ferrari. I'm not really into race car driving, but I just liked Matt Damon and Kristen Bale's characters a lot, and the story was really good, so I enjoyed the movie. It's basically the same thing with this book. So I'm gonna give this book a B. Yeah, maybe after I finish the TV show, if there's any major differences, I'll be talking about it in another video, but probably not. We'll see. Let me know what you thought about The Queen's Gambit down in the comments, and what did you think of the TV show? Like I said, I'm about 2 episodes in, and I'm really enjoying it. I think it's very true to form. And Anya Taylor-Joy was perfectly cast as Beth. She kind of has like a cold demeanor, but I don't know, kind of shy. She has like a really good, straight to the point attitude that really encompasses Beth's character. So I thought she did a really good job. So yeah, see you guys next time. I hope everybody out there has a nice day and stay safe and peace.